Imagine waking up to the possibility that your paycheck might shrink even more just as the UK economy teeters on the edge. That's the stark reality Rachel Reeves is hinting at with her upcoming budget. As the nation's Chancellor, she's not shying away from the tough talk on potential tax hikes, and it's got everyone buzzing about what comes next. In a candid admission during a press briefing, Rachel Reeves made it clear she won't commit to keeping taxes unchanged in the autumn budget set for this month. Instead, she emphasized the need to tackle reality head-on, quoting herself as saying she has to confront the situation we are in, rather than the one we'd prefer. This comes as she subtly signals a possible rise in income taxes, which would go against a key promise in Labour's election manifesto. Why? Because the country's financial books are in far rougher shape than anyone anticipated, thanks to what she describes as prolonged periods of poor economic stewardship by past administrations. Picture this: it's an early morning at Downing Street, and Reeves is addressing reporters directly. She urges everyone, from everyday citizens to fellow leaders, to pitch in for the sake of Britain's tomorrow. To construct a brighter future for our nation, we'll all need to play our part in that shared endeavour, she remarked, underscoring a sense of collective responsibility that's easy to grasp, but hard to swallow. Diving deeper, Reeves explained her mindset as Chancellor, facing facts squarely, without wishful thinking. When obstacles arise, and boy, do they, the real debate isn't about ignoring them, but about crafting smart responses. This speech was clearly designed to prepare the public for some hard decisions on taxation, painting a picture of the UK's economic hurdles that have intensified over the past year. Think about it: escalating global trade barriers, inflation that's proving stubborn and resistant to cooling down, supply chains that swing wildly like a pendulum, and the growing demands of defence budgets. All these factors, she noted, have piled on since the last financial update. Reeves took a moment to highlight her early wins, stabilising the public finances, pumping vital funds into struggling services like healthcare and education, and kickstarting economic recovery efforts. But, as she pointed out, the global scene has unleashed fresh storms since then, making her job even trickier. And here's where it gets controversial: she's vowing not to avoid the painful decisions, even if that means walking back her solemn pledge against increasing income tax, VAT, or national insurance contributions. For beginners, these are the big three taxes that hit most people's wallets directly: income tax on earnings, VAT on purchases, and national insurance for Social Security. She contrasted her approach with what came before, saying she could just kick the can down the road like previous leaders, slashing investments in infrastructure, or fudging the figures to look good short-term. But that, she warned, would leave us right back in the same spot a year or 5 from now: sluggish productivity, lackluster growth, and a ballooning national debt that's like a credit card bill you can't ignore. Instead, she's choosing transparency, being upfront with the public about the realities. But this is the part most people miss. Reeves didn't hold back in criticizing her predecessors for prioritizing short-term political wins over long-term economic health. She called out how they dipped into capital budgets, those pots of money meant for building schools, roads, and hospitals, just to make the daily accounts balance. And she outright labelled Reform UK's economic proposals as pie-in-the-sky dreams, nothing grounded in reality. Over the last 14 years, she argued, political shortcuts trump the greater good, landing us in today's fiscal tangle. When journalists pushed her on the idea that Labour might be ditching a core manifesto promise, Reeves stood firm: she has to prioritise what's morally and economically necessary, popularity be damned. Her budget, she assured, will zero in on what truly matters to everyday Brits: bolstering the National Health Service, NHS, to cut wait times and improve care, alleviating the squeeze from rising living costs like food and energy bills, and chipping away at the mountain of national debt to secure a stable future. Of course, there's been no shortage of rumours swirling about her exact moves, and Reeves gets that these aren't lightweight choices. They'll echo through the economy for years. She wants everyone to get the full context, the messy circumstances at play, the guiding principles behind her decisions, and her conviction that they'll serve the country best in the long run. On another front, the government plans to revive efforts at reforming welfare, think overhauling benefits systems to encourage work and support those who need it most. This follows an earlier attempt that hit a wall from within Labour's own ranks. True progress isn't about clinging to an outdated setup that's sidelining 1 in 8 young people, keeping them neither in school nor on a job, she stated passionately. For those new to this, welfare reform often sparks debate because it aims to balance generosity with incentives, but it can feel like a tightrope walk between helping the vulnerable and boosting employment. Reeves also pushed back against voices on the progressive side urging her to bend or ignore the fiscal rules, those strict guidelines on borrowing and spending to keep debt sustainable. She likened dodging them to sleight-of-hand tricks, but stressed a fundamental truth: government debt is bought by investors on open markets, and flooding the market drives up costs for everyone. It's a simple economics lesson: more borrowing means higher interest payments, like maxing out a loan and watching the rates climb. She called on both the public and politicians to grasp this unvarnished fact. Not long after her presser, Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch fired back, branding Reeves's approach as a textbook in engineering a slow national downturn. She slammed the Chancellor for dodging accountability on any tax increases, calling it absurd that Reeves points fingers everywhere but at her own doorstep. It's laughable watching her blame the world while unemployment ticks up month after month under Labour's watch, Badenoch quipped, pinning the rise on the new government rather than her own legacy. In her view, if Reeves had a real strategy, she'd be outlining alternatives to just hiking taxes, not scapegoating others. This paints a Chancellor cornered, scrambling without a clear path forward. Interestingly, the financial markets seemed to breathe a little easier post-speech. As Reeves reaffirmed her rock-solid dedication to those fiscal rules, it soothed investors holding UK bonds, essentially IOUs from the government. The yield, that's the interest rate investors earn, on 10-year UK bonds dipped by 0.045 percentage points to 4.39% that Tuesday morning, with 30-year bonds falling 0.05 points to 5.166%. In plain terms, lower yields mean cheaper borrowing for the government, a vote of confidence from the markets. And this is the part most people miss when it comes to market reactions. Top strategists are deeply engaged in anticipating the budget's twists, drawing lessons from last year. Back then, the market stayed calm because big shifts, like tweaking investment guidelines or bumping up employer national insurance, were previewed well in advance, even if they stirred controversy. No shocks meant no panic selling. Some folks close to the government even see a silver lining in the economic clouds, suggesting it's not as dire as forecasts paint. Sure, they acknowledge the headache from the Office for Budget Responsibility's recent downgrade in productivity expectations, as detailed here. https://www.theguardian.com/politics/2025/October/28//Britain-can-defy-gloomy-economic-forecast-says-Rachel-Reeves. But they highlight upsides like dropping costs for servicing debt, more folks entering the workforce to fill jobs, potential interest rate reductions from the Bank of England, and retail sales holding up better than expected, all of which could soften the blow and spark a modest rebound. The Guardian broke the story last month that Reeves is weighing an income tax bump to plug a deficit hole estimated at £20 billion to £30 billion, triggered by that steeper-than-forecast productivity slump, and more on that. https://www.theguardian.com/business/2025/October/28/Rachel-Reeves-UK-productivity-OBR-tax-rises-budget. And the initial scoop. https://www.theguardian.com/money/2025/October/23/Rachel-Reeves- is considering raising income tax